Digitalization, which serves as the center of technological development, can open a new era for humanity. Through its economic implementations and core effects, it can provide new tools for all layers of society. Just as the previous ones, the fourth industrial revolution has the potential and toolbox to recalibrate and reshape the current markets and economies. The next generation of the Internet, Web 3, the 5G mobile network, the metaverse, the smart city, new energy industry solutions, and the car industry went through a tremendous acceleration, not to mention the most important and exciting area of artificial intelligence. Continue with a quick quiz question. Speaking of AI, by how many US dollars, according to Goldman Sachs research, will generative AI technology boost the global economy over a 10-year period? A. $750 billion. B. $3.8 trillion. C. $1.2 trillion. D. $7 trillion. The right answer is D. According to recent research, breakthroughs in generative artificial intelligence have the potential to bring about sweeping changes to the global economy. As tools using advances in natural language processing work their way into businesses and society, they could drive a 7% or almost $7 trillion increase in global GDP and lift productivity growth by 1.5 percentage points over a 10-year period. It's not easy to imagine, but it's even more exciting to discuss. Join us on this technology panel as we explore how the solutions of the fourth industrial revolution, particularly artificial intelligence, can contribute to a more sustainable global and local economy. On the way to full digitalization and technological singularity.
Dear all, thank you for staying with us at the Budapest Eurasia Forum 2023 conference, and a warm welcome for those who have just joined in. The forum continues with the third panel, which is titled On the Way to Full Digitalization and Technological Singularity. It's my pleasure to greet Mr. Péter Fajkis, Director of Digitalization Directorate at MNB, who will moderate the panel discussion dedicated to technology. Mr. Fajkis, welcome. The floor is yours.
Gentlemen, let me also welcome you all. I'm Péter Fajkis. I am Director at the Digitalization Directorate at the Central Bank of Hungary. Well, it's always a challenge that after a nice lunch to keep the audience attention. However, we have a very, very fascinating topic and four fantastic panelists with us. So I hope you will absolutely enjoy the discussion and the session. Let me introduce you shortly our distinguished panelists. Let me start with Ronit Goose. He is Managing Director and Global Head of Future of Finance at Citi Research. Bruno Lamvin is the President at Smart City Observatory at IMD. Yichang Tan, Vice Dean of School of Information Science and Technology at the Fudan University. And Liping Tang, she's a Deputy Director General of Financial Research Institute and Development Research Center of the State Council. So let me welcome you also all, and thank you that you accepted our invitation. So let me start with a bit personal question to you as an opening. So one of the most talked about technological innovation of the last 12 months was the ChatGPT and GPT 3.5 and GPT-4 models. So my question would, of course, currently is also there in the news, OpenAI in a quite different perspective. However, what was your first impression when you first tried it out? What was your experience with that, and how do you think that it could be considered as a breakthrough, or it's more about some continuous development? This is just one quite important, but it's still just a milestone. How do you see it? Want to start? Yeah, please, Bruno. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Well, for those of us who had been watching developments in AI over the last 20 years, basically, when it was not yet a topic, ChatGPT did not represent a breakthrough. Or at least this is what I thought when it came out. And I was wrong. Because clearly it's not a breakthrough in terms of what AI can provide. It's just a continuation. But the breakthrough came from the fact that it is the first public product coming out of AI, something that everybody can use. And this significantly changes the equation. Suddenly you have issues coming out regarding copyright, plagiarism, governance, which are being discussed in the global arena. Before that, they were contained to discussions between a number of specialists who anticipated developments, feared some others. There were some warnings about the use in weaponry, etc. But clearly the fact that we have one public product that everybody can use and is fun to use, basically. Whether it's ChatGPT or DALL-E, it's a lot of fun. That changes the debate because even if the product is the same as what we've seen before, slightly better, the fact that we have this debate changes the equation.
Ronit, how do you see?
Yeah, I would echo what Bruno just said. In many ways, obviously, you could argue, particularly from an academic perspective, it's a continuation. It builds on decades of research, but particularly in the last decade leading up to in the 2010s. But there was a transformative break, a series break. And as Bruno said, and I think you can summarize it by saying it's a moment when UI met AI. It was something we could have in our hand. And it was something that we, as ordinary people, not just as analysts or professors or specialists in the field, it was ordinary people could have it in their hands and use it, like a search engine, like using a browser, a web browser. And you didn't need any other specialist devices or specialist knowledge. If I compared Gen AI's viral success in the last 9-12 months to, say, two other technologies, emerging technologies, one is blockchain, and the other one is the metaverse or extended reality, XR, those require typically either, in the case of blockchain, technical knowledge, or in the case of metaverse, useful, which we don't have really up to now, useful, user-friendly, new product, new consumer devices. ChatGPT was something that we could all just use our existing devices and understand. And not just ordinary people, but also people in positions of power. And in a prep call, or a prep meeting yesterday, I was discussing this with the panel and saying, we shouldn't underestimate how important that second element is, that people in positions of power, whether political power or economic power, could have this in their hands and go, oh yeah, I understand this. Peter, you were saying that typically advisors, I think I can't remember, it was Bruno was saying that yesterday to us, that advisors will come and tell people in positions of power, this is important, you need to focus on quantum, or you need to, most of this will, they'll be like, I'm too busy, I don't have time for this. You didn't need time for ChatGPT. It was easy to use. And the answers were funny. Like when I got it, so I worked for a big bank forever, for 26, 27 years, and so what did I do? As we do, I put into ChatGPT, was my last CEO a good CEO or a bad CEO? It's funny. I won't tell you the answer, but you can look it up yourself. And I was like, that's not a... And then I used to be for 20 plus years, I'm now based in Dubai, I used to be based in London. I ran our European bank research team and our global bank research team. And one of the kind of policy questions I've had in my head for years is like, why do European banks not make more money? So I put that into ChatGPT. And I got a really good answer. And so I got a funny answer, I got a good answer. The funny answer was I made ChatGPT do a rap battle between Citi and JP Morgan. It was funny to me, maybe not to many other people, but it was funny. But I also got a professionally sensible. It wasn't like an A-star answer, but it was a good enough answer, the answer on why European banks don't make more money. And so it was in our hands, and that was transformative. It's a massive series break. It's suddenly, from 9-year-old children to 60-year-old presidents of companies or countries, they can use it. And that's why it's so transformative. AI met UI.
Yeah?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I also had the same feeling as Bruno has mentioned. At the beginning, this ChatGPT didn't draw too much attention of me because we often use machine learning to, in my research field, to predict new material to help us optimize the device architectures. So I thought ChatGPT is something similar. But when I use it, and then I realized this is something, I think it's new because everyone can use it. And right now, I use it quite often. For example, if I try to open a new course, I will use ChatGPT to generate an outline of this new course. And now I actually had a very good thing to use it. For example, as a teacher in the university, we often need to write recommendation letters every year, many times. So I thought maybe we can use ChatGPT to help me release a little bit the burden. So I feed the ChatGPT of myself, like my background, my personality, my favor. And then if some students come to me for ask for the recommendation letters, I will just, again, that the ChatGPT knows who is this student, what's our relation, and then I can just generate a draft of the recommendation in maybe 2-3 seconds. And then I can start to work on that draft. It saved me a lot of times. So I think this is very useful, at least very useful, powerful tools for us. Thank you.
It boosted the recommendation effectivity, actually.
I have not, used the ChatGPT yet. So I think I'd better the last one to talk about the topics, But my colleagues, Mrs. Chen Ning, who came with me, have used it. We discussed during the trip. Well, she told me that when she used ChatGPT, she feels that the answer was natural. She could get natural and organized, well-organized answer. It looks very much like a mature adult who is thinking seriously. From user side, the results it provided are very close to human needs and in line with human expectation. But when we further discuss, it seems that there is a issue on accuracy. According to my observation, I think this may be related to the following reasons. First, the basic database used by ChatGPT still needs to be continuously updated and enriched. The corpus of keywords in information system may need to be improved and refined. Second, this may be related to differences in culture, thinking, and values among different societies. It's necessary to understand the difference between communicating with users from different cultural backgrounds. The third reason is that the technology itself still needs to continue developing to improve its multitasking ability. At last, I want to talk about why I haven't used ChatGPT yet, because I think I could not distinguish is safe enough or not. So I'm a risk aversion person, so I just want to wait and see.
Thank you. Actually, I think this security aspect and also the cultural aspect, which is quite rarely mentioned in this context, is very important. Bruno,
I believe it's at the very, very core of what we're going to face regarding artificial intelligence, because at the intersection between security and global usage is the notion of trust. So it's not just about securing what you're doing, it's to create a relation of trust between those who will be providing products and those who will be using them. What we've seen on artificial intelligence, not just ChatGPT, is a typical evolution that we see everywhere. That is, you start from science, very basic mathematical kind of research. You turn to technology. Once you get to technology, you start to get the interest of business. But when you turn from technology to product, then you get the attention of everybody, including politicians and governments. And the thing is that it's often difficult to know what is the difference between technology and the product people see. But what is the difference between science and technology, and where is the border? And one of the best answers I received to that question was at the time I was working in Africa, and the lady told me, science is what a grandmother can teach a granddaughter. Technology is the other way around.
I think that this is a very good saying. Let's have a deep dive into the implications of AI. And due to the fact that we are sitting in a central bank building, let me start with finance, of course. So let me turn to Ronit. Then before the panel, we have seen some interesting data regarding the development of AI and what could it boost actually the whole economy. It's $7 trillion USD, which is a huge number actually. So how do you see that the digitalization and the usage of these new innovation can transform the traditional financial models and also probably the industry?
Sure. A lot of the technologies we're talking about or will be talking about in this panel are obviously beyond finance, but then I work for a bank and you work for a central bank, so let's talk about the implications on financial services. One of the big challenges for both of us, both from a central bank perspective and a commercial bank perspective, is the speed of change. These new emerging technologies are going from early pilot to production and then mass adoption very, very quickly. As Bruno said, this is often based on decades of research, but when you go from that early production pilot stage to mass adoption, that speed of adoption is unprecedented. I think he meant it as a joke, but the former Federal Reserve Governor Paul Volcker once said that the only good innovation in banking in the last, I don't know, several decades or 100 years was the ATM, the automated teller machine. I think it was a joke, but I'm not sure. But ATM, when it was Citi, my bank, and several other banks, including Barclays, claims credit for the first ATM, depending if you look at the UK or the US. came in the late 60s, around the same time as the moon landing, believe it or not. So it took us that long to get an automated teller. We landed a man on the moon, late 60s. For the first 50 million users, it took about 15, 20 years. And nothing really changed in that time period that quickly. We came up with a great marketing line, the city never sleeps, because, you know, now the bank was open 24/7. So that's a Frank Sinatra song, but we used that as, you know, CITI rather than CITY. City never sleeps, because the bank was open all the time. But it didn't reach mass usage in the way software, it's a hardware. It was a hardware change. There's a big difference between hardware change, like the first plane, the first ATM, the first anything that's hardware related takes a long time to reach mass adoption. Anything software related, you just drop a piece of code out there and it spreads like a virus. Okay, I'm simplifying, but look at the speed of adoption of ChatGPT, of 50 million users in a month, right? That took the ATM between 15 and 20 years. The speed of change, without being hyperbolic, is parabolic. How do we cope? Peter's institution and mine are not built to cope with that kind of change. So that's the biggest issue. And how do we, and our institutions are based on, yes, efficiency and transparency, but also safety. So how do you manage to triangulate that? How do we give the consumer, I'm sitting with this in my hand because I'm checking what my colleague Bea is sending me, but I'm also checking my notes because I don't have paper notes. My notes are on this. If you're wondering why I'm playing with my phone, but our lives have been consumerized, right, by the phone, by the smartphone. We have more compute power than the moon landing had in my hand. How do we cope with the speed of change inside institutions like commercial banks and central banks? We can't. And that's the kind of fundamental structural challenge I see before we get onto other specifics.
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, it's not only finance, which could be affected by technology, but also cities where we are living in, especially smart cities. So how do you see, Bruno, that what kind of huge trends are out there in these aspects? What could be the what could be the future in that sense? And do you see that when we can reach actually a zero carbon city using these high-tech technologies?
Okay, this is a multi-layered question, and it may sound far away from what we were just discussing on AI, ChatGPT, and the use by banks. Actually, it boils down to the same sphere of problems. We, as a planet, have to face a number of global issues. One of them is that by the end of the century, we'll have to accommodate 3 more billion people. 90% of these 3 billion people will live in cities. So this is the challenge of cities generally, whether they are smart or not. But they will have to be smart because this is a massive challenge. And one way of being smart is to use technology, to be innovative, to use artificial intelligence and ChatGPT to have innovative bankers. I make a difference between innovative bankers and creative accountants.
Thank you. It's very important.
I hope so. The fact is that all these means will need to be mobilized to address these global challenges. And the fact is that cities will be the ideal test bed for new technologies. There's a number of risks that no government, no nation state will ever accept to take at the global level or at the national level or even at the regional level. But at city level, there's some wiggle room that you can use to say, let's make an experiment, and we can stop it if it doesn't work. So I do believe that some of the most innovative applications we're going to see of these new technologies, of artificial intelligence, of others, will be happening within cities. Whether we call those smart cities or not will remain to be seen. In some circles, smart cities has become a bad wording. So people like to now mention open, inclusive, innovative cities rather than smart. I have no problem with smart because there's more than one way to be smart. The first book of case studies we published 2 years ago at IMD was called 16 Shades of Smart. And the examples of cities where practically no technology was being mobilized to address problems like garbage disposal, traffic congestion, air pollution, were reminiscent of the fact that let's consider technology as one of the major tools we have at hand to address these global issues, but let's not discard low technology solutions.
So it's about the motivation and the solution, and that's about the technology per se. It's a very important point. Let me turn to Zhijiang. Actually, you also focusing on how to teach, how to deal with the new generation. So I would be very curious that, having in mind the finance and also the city aspects, what is the main challenges what you have seen? How can we prepare the new generation for the advanced usage of these kind of technologies?
Okay. Yeah. To be honest, I'm not worried about the new generation, as Bruno told that because ChatGPT and this AI is a technology, right? It should be the grandson, granddaughter teach the grandmother. So instead, I'm worried about myself because the teacher can, the students can ask questions to ChatGPT, and they get correct, 100% correct answers. Why they need me, right? So I think we should think about this question and try to use this AI support tools to improve ourselves. In China, back to 1,000 years ago, there's a very great teachers, we call it Kongzi. He had the saying, 因材施教. We always teach students based on their characters, their personalities. But that's a dream for us, but we never actually did that because, we don't have enough time. We cannot, we have hundreds of students in the class, so we have to take care of all of them, not one of them. But with the AI, with these powerful AI tools, maybe in the future we could have each student have one, personal tutors. When they work in the school, they can have these personal tutors start study with them from the beginning and wait until they becomes graduates. So maybe in the future, this is how the teachers becomes. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely hyper-personalized teaching, actually. It's a very interesting point. Let me turn to Liping. Actually, you are dealing with the whole economy and also the financial sector. So how do you see that? Do we need to worry that perhaps these new solutions, new technologies will cause some confusion in the markets, also in the real economy and also in the financial markets? So what is your experiences in this, or what are your thoughts on this aspect for the future?
Actually, just based on my own knowledge, I don't think we need to worry about that too much at present, because when we talk about from the financial side study on the topics fintech, we emphasize more on the empowerment of technology such as big data, cloud computing, blockchain, AI, machine learning, deep learning, and so on. So those technology, how they empower the traditional finance. Actually, according to my study, I put technology and finance in two dimensions. The empowerment take place through three ways or three models. The first is that traditional finance improves its service quality and efficiency by adopting advanced technology. This is the most common application of technology in finance. In fact, cutting-edge technology has a long history of application in the financial sector. Take the credit card as an example. In 1970s, actually, the bank first used applying the magnetic strap. In recent years, technological changes have once again led to a new round of innovation development in financial sector. The second model is that those big tech companies, they use new technology to provide some new financial services. Many large big tech, many big tech take their technological advantages, such as expertise in the above technology. I mentioned that they expand their service in financial sector, such as digital payments and crowdfunding, and a lot of examples we could find today. These companies are developing very rapidly. And the third model is that the technology companies provide a pure technological support or service to traditional financial institutions. Maybe one day we might not be able to distinguish these three models very completely clearly, but that might be another kind of improvement, I think. One example, recently I read a report is on the transformation of the London Stock Exchange Group. The report said that LSE, which operates in 190 countries and has a history of 300 years, no longer focuses on trading stocks as its main business. The group's revenue from listing and cash trading of shares is less than 4%. Well, its data and analysis business acquired and developed since 2017 accounts for about 2/3 of its revenue. So that transformation is good, I think, maybe for those the financial sector. So even also for the group. So I think maybe one day it's another kind of improvement in the future.
So you're more optimistic in that side, in that sense. Ronit, you actually mentioned the metaverse, and I think it's a few years earlier we discussed this issue quite often. However, with the emerge of the popularity of AI and ChatGPT, a bit turned over this topic. However, it's a very interesting aspect and a very interesting concept. So I would be very curious at how do you see that it could form us, or it was just a hype in the past, or it will come back in some sense, that what could be the practical implication of it? What are your expectations?
Sure. Maybe we should just start by defining what we mean by the term metaverse, because I think oftentimes people have a furious debate or disagreement on the concept of the metaverse, but they're talking about different things. In 2021, the term metaverse got captured by a couple of large companies and led to global popularity, including in the media. And it was very much a metaverse that was VR focused, or it seemed to be, in popular imagination, VR focused. I would take a broader definition of what the metaverse is, and I would use the term metaverse as interchangeable with XR, or extended reality. And in that broader family, you have different branches of the family. You have VR, yes, where you're wearing a fully immersive headset. You have AR, or augmented reality, which are the original Google glasses, or now the Ray-Bans that Meta have launched with sort of bone conduction hearing. And we think AR, augmented reality, will be much bigger than VR, virtual reality. VR is going to have some very specific, important, but potentially niche use cases, including in education and in health and other areas. Whereas AR is just practically much more useful. Particularly, I mean, those sunglasses, maybe if you're in Northern Europe, you can't wear very often, but I live in Dubai, so I could probably wear it pretty much every day. And they'll be really useful. I also think when it comes to tourism, for example, if I'm back in China or in India, and I don't have a world expert cultural or historical guide with me, I'd much rather have those glasses giving me a guided tour of the Winter Palace or a fort in Rajasthan than having the average tour guide talking rubbish to me, because I've had that over the years in various places, including in India, where I'm originally from. I'd much rather have, actually, can you imagine, I'm surrounded by academic experts, but their equivalents in cultural history or architectural history talking to me as I'm walking around the site. I'm walking around Rome or Budapest. It'd be awesome for tourism, for speaking, for translation. So I'm very bullish on AR, and it's going to come back because products and devices in that space are being launched. And then you have mixed reality, or you could say MR, which is phygital, the merging of physical and digital. So at a client event yesterday with some colleagues yesterday evening, I made a specific forecast. You're always told as an analyst, never make forecasts about the future with the specific dates on. And I said in 2024, we're going to go back to talking about, let's call it XR. And it's going to be huge. And AI will actually help power AR.
Yeah,
and VR.
Fuel it, absolutely. Yijang or Liping or Bruno, what is your views on?
I think I totally agree with what we just heard. Metaverse is a perfect example of the fact that sometime Bill Gates got it right. When he said that typically when there's a new technology that comes out, we tend to overestimate its impact in a 5-year horizon and totally underestimate its impact in a 10-year horizon. The metaverse is the very example of that. And clearly we went from a virtual reality world to an augmented reality world, and this is where things are going to develop. Again, bringing it back to the other themes we discussed, if you bring artificial intelligence and augmented reality, you broaden the database, you're going to make the metaverse much thicker, much more interesting, much more productive. If you bring that at the level of smart city, you're going to use digital twins for city. You're going to experiment without putting anybody in danger. And that's a metaverse. A digital twin of a city is a metaverse version of that city. So what you can simulate there will be additional element to make informed decisions about how you want to govern your city.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Just as a follow-up, and people say, oh, but this is just PR hype, or it's never going to happen. Any new technology, when it applies to popular adoption, particularly if it's sort of a social or cultural aspect to it, don't talk to 50-year-olds like me. Go and talk to 10-year-olds. The other day I was presenting, actually a couple of months ago at a university, and the speaker before me said to a room like this with 20-year-olds, "You are the future," which is the corny, cheesy line you go to universities and tell them. I spoke after that, said, sorry guys, you used to be the future. Go and talk to your sisters and brothers and nephews and nieces who are 8 or 10 or 12, and look at what they're doing, how they're living. They already live in the metaverse. You know, I'm obsessed with this, but my children, particularly my youngest one, he lives in the metaverse. It just happens to be called Minecraft or Roblox. He lives in the metaverse. One of his friends recently left Dubai to go back to South Korea. They still play in the metaverse. They communicate in the metaverse. I was in Bahrain recently presenting to the central bank, and I was discussing with a colleague. His nephew, it's a true story, was asking him that morning, I'm playing with my cousin in Qatar. I need to move money. You're a banker. Uncle, explain. And obviously didn't go into the mechanics of SWIFT payments and cross-border payments. And so he said, yeah, we can move money. And he said, right, I want to send it now. And like, okay, that's going cross-border. No, we're playing the game now. The game is being played now. The money needs to go now. It's a token, right? Yeah. And that's the future in a small way, that money is going to look different in the gaming context.
Yeah, thank you.
Defining the future is very difficult when you look at younger generation. I think that one of my grandchildren is a hologram.
Oh my gosh.
Does he come to family gatherings?
Yeah. At least you can meet actually with in the metaverse with him or her. Yichang, how do you see this?
Yeah, I just want to add something from education again. I agree with Nari that how to define metaverse is something we should think about. I think the technology about the metaverse is already there, but we still haven't created enough application to use it. The more we use it, the reality will be coming sooner. So right now in my university, there's a project, running project. We try to build up digital twins, like we had the course. And then we actually record by the video each student how they behave in the course, and then they by the help of AI we have some score of these students, how many % he has understand what the teacher told. So maybe in the future, when I explain the Newton's second laws and when I finished, I want to move on to the next point. There is some sign fresh in my glasses. I say, well, only one student understands. Please repeat it again. So maybe this is something in the future we could use it. Yeah, thank you.
I don't know whether the teachers will be very happy or not with this solution, but it's a very good example. Liping?
You know, I'm not an expert on technology. Actually, when I follow the development of technology, it's only from the perspective of the study on fintech. And yes, the metaverse, you know, the concept is new and not long, and absolutely, it will have a big, significant influence on financial sector. But at this time, I would like to speak about the factors that will influence the metaverse. Besides the technology itself, I think one factor we need to maybe pay attention to, that is the social acceptance of the technology. Actually, any technology development, when the technology is applied in financial sector, it should be supervised and regulated. So it depends on what kind of regulation environment is another factor we need to, I think, about when we talk about the future of the technology.
Thank you. Before the closing question, a very important aspect, and very briefly, that is an ethical and regulation on AI and these kind of new technologies like metaverse. Our governor also mentioned actually this aspect in his opening speech, that the trade-off or the challenges, the finding the right balance between innovation and the ethical usage of these technologies. So how do you see this? If anyone would add to that, how can we actually regulate, or how can we have an ethical aspect with the technology which is still emerging and still developing? So I don't know, Yichang or Bruno or Ronit Lipeng.
we need, in the morning, some panel talk about the governance cooperation. So I think to regulate mental words or AI or some, technology singularity, very popular words in this morning. I think maybe the very important step is to cooperate in between international communities. And also we need to cooperate between the financial sector and the technology sector or the related sector, because it's, the issues is not only technology or only financial or only society issues. The issues is too complicated. So we need to try to solve the, attain consensus or common sense among different or related parts to solve this kind of problem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Bruno?
I would like to draw a line between regulation for ethical reasons and regulation in general. If we put the ethical dimension aside, markets still need regulation. The difference with the world we are entering now, including with AI, can be considered as the following, and I'm oversimplifying. In the 1970s, you had regulator for communications, and you had a regulator for information technology. And at some point, the merger happened between those two industries. And suddenly, one realized that you needed a regulator who should be able to give the principles to the market of this new sphere, telecom plus information technology. And that meant that enlightened regulators, the good regulators, needed to be plurisectoral. They needed to know about two sectors that were separate before. We have a similar challenge now with AI because it is so deeply ingrained into the cultural dimension of what we do that any regulator on AI will have to be not only plurisectoral, because AI will apply to many sectors, including education, including telecommunications and others. They will have to be multicultural. They will know to understand how is artificial intelligence written in Chinese characters, because that will depict how a Chinese mind refers to AI. How is it described in German, in Portuguese, in Arabic? This will be a very important dimension that, in my view, does not exist today among regulators. Maybe tomorrow our top students will want to be regulators. That may be the more sexy kind of activity. And if that is the case, it may change a number of things.
It's good news, actually, for regulators and for central banks in that sense. Ronit, would you something to add?
I'm going to be careful what I say as we're sitting in a central bank and a regulator, but there's a real risk, if I can speak out of turn, that a lot of AI developments are happening right now outside Europe. Please, please, please don't default in Europe to becoming just the regulator for AI. And I say this as I think Britain's still part of Europe, so I'm kind of a quasi-European. There's a real risk here that because the EU in many ways is a regulatory superpower, we've seen this with GDPR, and they will do regulation. We've seen this with MiCA as well, with digital assets. That's a good thing, by the way. You need regulation. So there's more certainty in the European digital asset market in a way than in the US, which has been done through enforcement, not regulation. But there's so much talent in Europe. There's so much talent in, whether it's in Switzerland, in Hungary, in Germany, in the UK, in France. Use that talent to build product. And don't rush to over-regulate too early. We don't know what we're regulating yet. AI is just starting. And in many ways, yes, we need maybe a general purpose regulator, but if my 9-year-old said to me tomorrow, or even my 20-year-old, I want to be a regulator, hey, I could see myself being a regulator because, you know, I'm in policy, right? I mean, I'm not really a banker. I mean, I work for a bank, but I'm, you know, in my 50s, I'd happily come in. If anyone wants to give me a job as a policy advisor in a central bank, I'll take it. But if my 9-year-old said that, oh my God, a little bit of me to die inside. Sorry.
Okay. Yi-Cheng?
Or your hologram grandchild? I hope your hologram grandchild doesn't want to become a
regulator.
regulator.
Grandchild told me to mention something important here. I think there should be no misunderstanding in the way I see the role in the regulator. Mm-hmm. The regulator is often seen as somebody who limits, who says, this you cannot do. Mm-hmm. I see the regulator as somebody who can create predictability.
Yes.
Say, these are the rules.
Or a co-creator.
Okay? A co-creator, something like that. So that's my positive view.
Absolutely. We see this, in fact, in the UAE, where I'm based, or in Singapore, where they're co-creating. They're saying, look, there are certain things you can't do, but let me help you achieve something. In reality, most regulators don't know that.
Let's bring the younger people to co-create that and the holograms.
I look forward to seeing regulators in Roblox inside Minecraft.
Yi-Cheng,
would you just quickly respond to these questions? Maybe two days ago, there's a news about this ChatGPT has done for half day something. Yeah, then in the Twitters, there's a lot of students who was complaining, oh, what should I do for my course thesis? How do I finish my homework? So talking about regulation, I really don't know that there was a lot debate how we can regulate this behavior when the students use ChatGPT to help them to finish their work. But as long as the students knows the answers, I think it's okay for me if they use the ChatGPT to help them. That's my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, as a closing question, I would be very curious that a first quick yes and no, that how do you think the array of Kurzweil, they predict that we can reach the technological singularity by 2045, or roughly. So what do you think about this? That can we, or you think it's earlier or later? I would be very curious with a short answer. And the last one would be that how do you see that what could be the single most crucial step or action, which one we should recommend to the global community, which should be taken? And can we go for a whole round? Can we start with Yi-Cheng? Yeah? How do you see?
Yeah, for the first question, the simple question, I think so, yes. Yeah, maybe 5 years, the singularity will come. And for the suggestions I would like to make is that no matter you agree or not, this new technology will come to a normal life. So instead of refuse it, maybe we should embrace it, use it in a better way. Yeah, that's my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Liping?
Actually, before the panel, we discussed what's the definition of technology singularity, because it's a challenge or a good opportunity in the future is unclear. So I think maybe next crucial step we need to take is to establish a common governance framework for digitalization and the technology singularity, both at international and domestic level. That's my simple answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Ronit?
No idea. I have no idea when there's going to be technological singularity. And as for what it means is another question. But just to answer the other question you posed in terms of one thing we should do, most of us were told, and most of us have lived our lives with the view that if we went to our neighboring country and went to see our neighbors, either next door or far away, where there was going from here to Italy or to China, we'd learn something, right? Hopefully we'd learn something. Maybe not professionally, but just from a personality perspective or an educational perspective, we'll learn something. Our biggest challenge today is that, as I said before, technology is speeding up. Everything is coming to us very fast. The technologists who are often producing this change understand that technology very well, but they don't understand necessarily politics or culture or society so well. And vice versa. Our cultural leaders, our political leaders, often our banking and industrial leaders don't understand the technology so well. So we're at this real risk of basically having people creating product, whether it's in Shenzhen or in San Francisco, who are now telling us how to live our lives. Because AI is being created by often demographically very diverse people, ethnically very diverse people, but they have a shared mindset because they're living in small communities. And you can see this when you talk to, depending on which cohort of education you come out of. And that's the biggest challenge. I think if we can have both, go back to my 9-year-old, my 20-year-old, if you can understand data science and philosophy, that way, whether singularity happens or doesn't happen, who knows what that means, at least we'll be prepared for the next 10, 15 years to have a better, richer life in society.
Thank you. Bruno?
Yeah, in 10 seconds. The singularity, I think singularity is being redefined, which is not explaining much. But the fact that when Kurzweil mentioned it, it's about the volume of artificial intelligence exceeding the volume of natural intelligence. We already passed similar singularities. In 1998, the total amount of machine-generated data became bigger than the total amount of human-generated data. That is, if you put all together all the books that have ever been written, the poetry, the films, the music, etc., you put that all together, say that's human-produced data for the last 40,000 years, it started to be exceeded by IoT, etc., in 1998. We survived that, okay? Now, we're still dealing with it, but we survived that. So I think there's a symbolic value in identifying singularities, but hardly more than symbolic value. Now, regarding what we need to do, we need to trust more younger people. We need to involve more women in our decision-making. And third, and most important, but that stems from the first two, we need to replace fears with hopes. If we don't believe in our future, it's not going to be the one we like.
Thank you very much. It's a very, very good closing, and it's also absolutely connected the trust issue what you just mentioned at the beginning of the discussion. So thank you very much to you all. It was a very fascinating discussion, and thank you very much for the attention as well. And I will thank you again, and I hope you will have a very nice discussion after the fireside chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fajkish, for guiding us through this session, and I also thank the participants for their valuable insights. After the interesting panel discussion, it is time to move to a fireside chat moderated by Mr. Zoltán Cséfalvai, Head of Center for Technology Futures, School of Economics at Matthias Corvinus Collegium, where he gives lectures and conducts research on the economic, social, and geopolitical impacts of digitalization, robotization, and artificial intelligence in Europe. Previously, he worked as senior researcher at the Joint Research Center of European Commission in Seville. He served as ambassador of Hungary to the OECD and UNESCO in Paris, and as Minister of State for Economic Strategy in Hungary. Professor Cséfalvai, it is our pleasure to have you here. The floor is yours.
It was a very, very long story of my life in a short way. But it gives me a great pleasure to have this fireside chat, which is normally before the discussion. But a great pleasure for me is to invite Sir John O'Reilly to the floor, who is president of the Khalifa University Science and Technology in the United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi. He was also General Director at the BIS, that is Business and Innovation and Skill. Just think about it, put together a ministry which has business, innovation, and skill together. He was also Vice Chancellor at the Cranfield University, and currently he is also Chairman of the Science and Engineering Advisory Council of the Agency for Science, Technology and Research in Singapore. Sir John, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, it's a little bit difficult to have a fireside chat which normally should spark the discussion when we had the discussion. And a simple reason for that is Sir John's came by plane. Yeah? Just consider, yeah? We are traveling the same plane as 30 years ago. We are discussing here such a thing as full digitalization, singularity, whatever does it mean, and what kind of development have been, let's say, in that case, in the air travel, apart from some new business model. So just think about a little bit. We are focusing one part of the economy, one part of the technology, and there are technological parts where there have been no technical or technological evolution at all. When I was just, and before I come to my question, when I was just listening to the discussion, and I will ask also this from you, that it came, and just listen to this thing with a ChatGPT and so on, and what the panelists were saying. It came with the idea, Peter Diamandis, this very famous 6D, starting with the digitization, and after that coming disruptive, the development, because it will be exponential, then disruption, the old model according to Schumpeter, and after that comes to demonetization, dematerialization, and democratization. Okay? So it's a question that ChatGPT is bringing to the democratization of AI or not. And just one point before I ask my basic question in that case, just think about it. We are discussing many times that, ChatGPT or let's say artificial intelligence is there and how we'll transform and change the human. And the ChatGPT, I think, is a good example. And that was exactly what the panelists said, that no, it is accessible for everybody. So the product is changing when it's diffused and come to the people, and not the human are changing. Or the product are changing that we can use. Yeah? So my basic question in that case, Sir John, that we are talking a lot about artificial intelligence. Where we are exactly now in the development of the artificial intelligence?
Wow. Haven't you got a hard question to ask, perhaps?
There are really many.
Yes. No, where are we with AI? Well, let's just pick out a number of things, if I might, first of all. First of all, the comment that was made earlier. What was the most significant thing about ChatGPT? It brought it to people's attention and put it in their ability to use it. Your democratization was that more than the particular technical revolution of that particular large language model. In a way, more significant in AI, for me, I think, probably was AlphaGo. You know, when Demis Hassabis and those of DeepMind produced a machine capable of playing Go and beating, you know, the world champion. The thing that was significant about that for me, and I'll get to your question in a minute, was when they ran the competition, surrounded by the Go experts, and when the DeepMind Alpha got to move 87 or something like that, I forget the number, all the experts gasped. It's made a mistake. But it went on and won the game. And when they analyzed the game, they concluded that that was the move that made all the difference. It had done something that none of the experts would do. And that was because of its power to generate more things to learn from. It was the speed with which it would learn. It played games that had never been played. Initially, it had been taught on games that had been played. That, I think, was a very significant point, and in a way speaks to this question, because it was something that could not be realistically expected of a human. So for me, that was very significant, but was lost generally on the public. I mean, it was there, it was kind of interesting, but Go wasn't a game that people played. It was a novelty, nothing else. ChatGPT was not so significant technically, but was massively, massively significant socially, contextually, and so on. Now, what else follows from this? Another point that was made. Things are speeding up, and your point. We're going to talk a little bit probably about, Industry 4.0. Well, actually, I'm not sure what Industry 3.0 and 2.0 were, but we do know what we mean by the Industrial Revolution, don't we? Now, how long did it take for that to really take off, to really become significant and change gradually? If you now move forward and say, let's say towards the end of the last century, how long did it take for new technologies to really get out there and take off? How long would it take you to say, if I look at the future, how far out were you looking? And you could maybe look at that time 20 years out and sort of conceive it. What about now? With AI, can you say what it will be like in 2 years' time? With that sort of change in timescale, what does that mean for our ability to adapt, to keep up, and so on? Those, I think, are significant questions.
May I frame a little bit differently the question?
Yeah.
That are we in a discovery stage, or are we in the implementation stage? Because also the discussant in the panel said, okay, the basics were discovered in the last decade, the deep learning, machine learning, and since then what we are doing is just implementing the machine learning and deep learning in different fields, because they have different economic consequences, I think.
I don't think it's A or B. I think it's all of those things. Okay. We're speeding up, that's for sure. We're also diversifying. For example, to pick up that last point I just made, large language models are distinctive because they are large. Look at what it can do because of a large language model. But what is the frontier of AI? One frontier of AI is learning with less. Yes? What can we do with less data? Not what's the power of big data, and what does that mean? Do you see what I mean? It's not as simple as, oh, are we at the frontier or are we just embedding it? It is changing all the time. The reason I went through that monologue I did about from the Industrial Revolution is actually this is, in my view, evolution as much as it is revolution, all the time. The difficulty, the speed at which it's going, the fact that it's speeding up, evolution. Just one word. It's Darwin-esque in one way, but you know what was said, Darwin, survival of the fittest. Then someone said, it's not the strongest that survive, nor the most intelligent. It's that most adaptable to change. That, for me, is the big challenge for us, the speed of change.
Thank you very much for mentioning Darwin, because this very famous sentence, survival of the fittest,
yes,
is always very strongly translated into Hungarian, exactly in that way what you mentioned with the strongest.
But they also mentioned it wasn't him that said it.
Thank you very much for the sentence what you said that learning from less, because I think we are discussing many times artificial intelligence and human intelligence, and sometimes the machine will surpass and so on. So the machine currently is, let's say, intelligent, using a huge amount of data. And we are, I hope, intelligent, using very, very less minor data. Yeah? Just think about it. When we will have, according to the calculation, when we will have a fully autonomous car, one day, so for the consume of 1 day of the data for the driverless car will be 4,000 gigabyte data. Yeah? That's a terribly huge amount. But I would rather just come back to another discussion what we had today, a little bit geopolitics and so on. So currently there is so in the media, in the hype, there is a rival and etc. and so on. So what do you think when we are in a little bit mixed stage? That means implementation and the discovery a little bit. Yeah. What are the role of the so-called first mover who first developed the idea and so on, and the fast followers? Because what we sometimes put in the geopolitical struggle and rivalry and so on, a little bit I think the idea, or what happening is beyond, is first mover and fast follower.
Yes, I mean, we often refer to the first mover advantage, don't we? And sometimes to the first mover disadvantage.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the point, which is if you become complacent, if you become comfortable, then be sure you're going to lose it. Yes? And I think that there isn't a simple response to that because it's simply true. Either of those things can happen. And the companies that are, it goes back to what I said before, the most responsive to change. Another facet, risk or challenge. It's often in those areas that the greatest opportunities are to be found. It's a bit the same. It's a bit the same. We always talk about risk management, don't we? We should talk about opportunity management because that's what's there. And that's what's there, I think, with AI. We are rightly focusing on, hang on, what are the risks of this? What does this mean? What are the ethical questions and so on? And it's right to think about those, but we must not let it distract us from also saying, what can this bring? What can happen? Because if we don't pay attention to that, be clear, it will happen somewhere done by someone else. You know, and the risk of that is far greater.
So how can we make the clear border between risk and panic? Because when you just look back the whole issue of the ChatGPT, coming back to this story, and just looking at the hype and the messages and the news. One of my students anyway checked it in Hungary in the last. It started in January with the news and so on, the ChatGPT, and after that it came to the fear, yeah, that humanity will die and etc. and so on. It was at the top. This curve in April, and after that, the news were about that how can we use efficiently, let's say, in teaching or in offices and so on. So what do you think? We discussed also here the regulation. We need or not, it's the other question. What do you think? Is it reasonable to have really strong consideration about regulation when we are in a hype, when we are in a panic cycle, when we are considering more the risks than the benefits?
I think regulation is an interesting word to bring into this, and I don't know that I look at it just in terms of risks and benefits. I mean, in a bit of my career, was very involved in telecommunications, and when we started to deregulate telecommunications, when we started the process of privatization and so on, we had to put in a regulator there. Why? What was the purpose? And it does pertain to this. Look at telecommunications, or indeed look at banking. You have regulations. You also have competition. And you have to have one for the other to work. Banks can't work without cooperating in certain ways in which they interact, but they compete because it's a market. Telecommunications providers compete with one another for customers, but necessarily have to cooperate as well. And actually, for me, this plays in here. One of the questions I was asked about Eurasia was, what does it mean to you? And I think to many people, it means cooperation. Right, and I said, yes, but it also be pragmatic and realistic about it. Competition happens and has an important part to play. And there's that wonderful portmanteau word that plays in here for me, co-opetition. Yeah. Learn how to do each and the other, one and the other at the same time in the same way. And when you talk about this thing between risk and so on, it's something of that nature for me.
You mentioned co-opetition. That is also something for that we don't have a Hungarian word, so that means cooperation and competition at the same time. And I think that is one of the secret of some very successful innovation regions, also in Singapore or the Silicon Valley and many parts of the world, that they can compete and cooperate at the same time. But just a little bit consider this whole issue. We discuss always this rivalry and the AI and so on. How the consequences are the competition, in globally, when only a handful of countries are really leading in artificial intelligence. So that's US, China, Singapore, South Korea, Japan, UK, Union is rather regulating and so on. And the majority of the world is rather just implement and use. So we will be having a world when just a handful of countries, 6 or 8 and so on, will discover something new in artificial intelligence, and all the other just consume it.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure that's right. That exists. Why did we single out artificial intelligence, though? What about in semiconductors? Doesn't the same apply? I think it's the reality of very advanced technology. Each has to find where it can play its part, where it can take its opportunities. So I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying I think, though, it is as it is. What is interesting when it is something in software, though, is that it's actually more democratizable. Someone made the comment earlier. If you want to do seriously advanced physical technology, huge costs, long time scales, and so on, can only be big players. That applies to the semiconductor industry, doesn't it? I mean, if you wanted to make chips, you could do it. But at a certain time, some people came along with a smart idea, and they said, we'll be a fabless chip company. In the UK, ARM became a global phenomenon through that, as much as through the architecture they came up with, which is a very different business approach and so on, and significant. Now, who knows?
Yes, it's also true that sometimes not just, normally we are talking about this innovation as a product innovation or technological, but also on the top there is also business innovation, and the fabless are also this kind of innovation. So there is always plenty of room for new innovation. That's true. That brings the world forward. We both are very strongly involved in universities' life and so on, and teaching and so. So what do you think, let's say, the education, or what we need to educate the student, let's say, that they will be robot-proofs or AI-proofs, or they will have AI-proof jobs in the future?
Okay, jobs is harder, but let's pick up the education bit first. And I'll now give a personal prejudice. We overuse the word teaching when we're talking about education. It's not about teaching, it's about learning, isn't it? Really, that's true. The job of a teacher has been to facilitate and enable learning, including learning how to learn. At the university, that's the most powerful thing we do, right? Do you think AI can play a part in enabling learning and accelerating learning? Yes, of course it can. It's going to be transformational for education. The point was made previously about personalization. Personalized learning, using learning analytics. The machine from which the student is learning about the student, is finding where the gaps are, and is adjusting the learning experience accordingly. to an extent and in a way that is completely impossible by someone standing in front of a class of 100 students and doing, when I was a student, what lecturers did. It was well known that the lecturer was a vehicle for taking information from the notebook of the lecturer and getting it into the notebook of the student without it going through the brain of either, if you see what I mean. Well, with learning analytics, with automation and so on, transformational. Now, what then is the role of the teacher? Yes, that's different, okay? But notice what I said. I didn't say it went away. I said it will be different, just like the learning experience will be different.
I fully agree with you that, as I mentioned, with teaching, I personally experienced this, that 30 years ago, there was a professor or the teacher, he knows something and the students not, yeah? Yep. With the authority. And after that I recognized, okay, the student can, every figures what I said, they can check immediately via internet, and I have to learn what you mentioned, that it is not about teaching, it is rather about education and so on. So unfortunately we are running out of time, and there will be a book presentation. So we were discussing the AI, exponential growth and so on. Just I want to finish with one quote, and maybe when you would like to reflect. Gordon Moore once said, he's the father of the microprocessor and also the Moore's law and so on, that no exponential is forever. Yeah, that is, we are discussing such a thing as singularity and so on. No exponential is forever, but that forever can be delayed.
Well, and that's applied to Moore's law. We've been hitting the red wall for a long time, or thinking we're going to. It is now beginning to hurt, but the advance has been very impressive in terms of what's available there. So it's for sure. Not exponential forever. Now let's pick up something on AI and look at the advances. And I'll give a quote. I'm going to quote T.S. Eliot, an English poet of some time ago. Because with AI, we're looking at learning, and we were talking earlier about data and the part that it plays and so on. But T.S. Eliot wrote something, and he wasn't talking about AI, it was decades ago. But a couple of lines from his poem, The Rock, I thought we should think of in this context. Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? Oh, and by the way, today we could say, where's the information lost in data? Notice, wisdom, knowledge, information, data. Here we're playing with data, with information, maybe knowledge. We could do with some wisdom though, can't we? Maybe that's our great hope. Maybe we bring the wisdom to it all.
So thank you very much for quoting T.S. Eliot. That is my favorite anyway, from the Rock, that the chorus said in that way. And really we should consider in this whole issue AI full digitalization rather than digitalization, and with the artificial intelligence, all these things, what is the difference between information, data, okay, and knowledge and wisdom. I think wisdom is, knowledge is when we put the information in context somehow, yeah, which is, I am not sure that the machine is able to put the context of the data. The machine is able to find some pattern when it is digitized. And the second, the wisdom is rather much more. The wisdom is, there's a convention beyond, yeah? So I believe that this is the way and I don't think that machine can believe in something in the current stage. So, Sir John, thank you very much for this discussion. It was a very little bit strange that we discussed after that, but we could reflect a little bit also what we had very interesting discussion before. And yeah, maybe once the technological development will be better with also with the physical things. That means we will have once a plane which can have the flight from Manchester to Budapest during 1 hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cséfalvai, for leading this inspiring discussion. With closing our third panel, we have reached the end of our regular program. Our last program will be the ceremonial book launch of the latest edition of Eurasia volume of studies titled Geo-Awakenings, Building a Sustainable Future in the Emerging Eurasian Era. It is my pleasure to invite Mr. Barnabás Virág, Deputy Governor of the NBN and editor of this edition, to introduce the book and share his thoughts. Deputy Governor Virág is responsible for monetary policy, financial stability, and international relations. Mr. Virág, the stage is yours.
Dear distinguished guests, dear ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would like to warmly welcome to everyone attending the 4th Eurasia Forum here in Budapest. I hope you enjoyed the professional panels today. So now we are moving to the last session of the day, and now I would like to present the new book, the studies made to the Eurasia Forum in this year. I have to say that for me, it's a great pleasure to edit this book. As an editor, I benefited a lot from those talks I found in the articles. I remember I started my career in 2001 in the finance ministry. And after that, in 2003, I joined to the central bank. I joined to the staff of the MNB as an economist. During that time, we lived in the era of great moderation, in the era of fast economic growth with lower and lower inflation, the era of hyper-globalization with a single polar world order. I remember during that time, to be a central banker, it was a little bit, how to say, boring position. We had a one tool, one target story. We focused on the inflation rate. We managed the interest rate in a proper level. We made a lot of effort to understand the real business cycles in a proper way, to understand the Phillips curves, and so on and so on. During that time, in 2003, Robert Lucas, the famous Nobel Prize winner economist, said, "We solved the issue of economic crisis in a developed world for many decades." Obviously, it was not true. In 2008 and 2009, the global financial crisis came, and we learned that it's not enough to focus on the real business cycles. We have to read well the financial cycles as well. And after that, as we jump to the decades of 2020s, it's pretty clear that we are living in the era of polycrisis. We are living in a very, very complex world. So within this situation, to be a central banker, nowadays I think it's a more colorful world. It's not enough to be a good economist. We have to deal with geopolitics. We have to deal with geopolitics. We have to deal with energy transition, with climate issues, with digitalization. We have to talk about artificial intelligence, and so on and so on. So that's why it's a great pleasure for me to edit this book. And that's why I'm saying I benefited a lot from those studies I read in the paper. The volume series is now being expanded with the third edition under the title Geo-Awakenings, Building a Sustainable Future in the Emerging Eurasian Era. Our objective for 2023 was a publication examining the connection between geopolitics and sustainability in the Eurasian network. The studies in the geopolitical, financial, and technological chapters of the volume showcase the most recent advancements in sustainable geopolitics in Eurasia. The book seeks to further research in this area, provide a fresh outlook on Eurasian concept, and most importantly, emphasize the importance of the platforms for cooperation and initiatives established to cope with the issue the region faces. We can all see that a new global order is currently emerging as a result of factors including the challenges posed by the slowing global economy, climate change, and the quickening pace of technological advancement. Among these factors, I would especially highlight geopolitical tensions which polarize and divide the international community at the very times when cooperation is most needed. While the events of recent years further increased the fragmentation of the global order and thus disruptions in the global trade, the age of Eurasia began to emerge at the turn of the 2010s and the 2020s. All of these presents a tremendous opportunity for the Eurasian countries to take advantage of the current changing circumstances. Not only the nations of Eurasia, but central banks in the region also face enormous challenges during this turbulent and volatile time. However, as demonstrated by the Central Bank of Hungary and its constantly growing international network, difficulties cannot only be managed to overcome, but also utilized to our benefit if we have quick situational awareness, and despite the unknown circumstances, we are at the front of changes due to our adaptability. International cooperation agreements between governments, central banks, and monetary authorities are essential to bolstering and expanding the global financial safety net. Improving cooperation is especially important for issues that are becoming inescapable, such as central bank digital currencies, green finance, and international financial stability. To respond quickly to international events and adjust their operations accordingly, central banks must continue to be aware of the ongoing changes in the global landscape. Cooperation is essential not only between various international actors, but different disciplines as well. This is particularly true now that everyone recognizes sustainable development as a key component of the advancement of each individual discipline. This recognition leads to the emergence of interdisciplinary approaches that bring experts from various fields together to address complex global challenges. This makes it easier to share knowledge, ideas, and resources, and ultimately leads to more thorough and effective solutions for sustainable development. Long-term sustainability and geopolitics are common features of the most pressing global issues today, such as climate change, growing geopolitical fragmentation, international finance, economic decision-making, technological advancement, and even central banks' monetary policy decisions. Therefore, maintaining, developing, and expanding multilateral cooperation at various levels is required. In addition to the green transition, we see as our grave duty, as discussed in our volume for last year, to become champions of the expansion of Eurasian cooperation in the geopolitical, economic, and technological spheres as well. All of this represents yet another important accomplishment in terms of central banks fulfilling their duties to the economy and society. The main question this volume raises is how to forge a global consensus based on sustainability in the recently emerging Eurasian era. This book is the result of a collaboration between experts from various fields, including academics, policymakers, and business professionals with connection to the Eurasian region. It is a well-rounded collection of 12 studies that are divided into 3 chapters: geopolitics, finance, and technology, each of which covers a different aspect of sustainability, the Eurasian region. The authors of this book, which includes studies of 18 authors from 7 countries, represent the wide international network of the MMB, including the Center for China and Globalization, the Boao Forum for Asia Academy, the Fudan University, the National University of Singapore, the European Union Center in Singapore, the Z Yang Group, the Ban Ki-moon Foundation for a Better Future, the University of Southeast Norway, the Pallas Athene Domus Meriti Foundation, the Eurasia Center at the John von Neumann University, the Migration Research Institute at the Matthias Corvinus College, and the Magyar Nemzeti Bank, the Central Bank of Hungary. The book is meant to provide a comprehensive overview of the opportunities and challenges that the Eurasian region presents to both its people and the global community. I would like to warmly thank all authors for providing us with their valuable thoughts on the most various topics related to geopolitics and sustainability in the Eurasian context. The 2020s are expected to be a very busy decade with new opportunities for Eurasian cooperation. This volume represents the commitment of the MMB to Hungary's goal of bringing East and West together in the heart of Eurasia and expanding the country into a future intellectual and finance hub. It aims to be widely read and to offer a solid foundation for further discourse on its topics. This volume provides a thorough understanding of how the geopolitical, financial, and technological aspects of the ongoing transformation are affecting the world. By combining the viewpoints of renowned experts from China, Germany, Singapore, the United Kingdom, South Korea, Norway, and of course from Hungary, it also sets an example for others to follow regarding the importance and progressive nature of cooperation. The authors of the book are well aware of the challenges that the Eurasian region is facing, but also of the great potential that it holds. Through this book, we aim to provide readers with a comprehensive overview of the region and to inspire them to think about new and innovative solutions to the challenges that the region is facing. I'm confident that policymakers, academics, business professionals will find this book to be an invaluable resource, and it will be of great interest to all readers. In order to create a more sustainable future for the Eurasian region and its citizens, I hope that the publication of this volume will contribute to the region's continued development. I would like to encourage everyone to read this outstanding volume, which is available in the book corner for distinguished guests for free during the event. By drawing on the knowledge and expertise of our contributors from a variety of backgrounds, we are confident that this outstanding publication has allowed us to broaden the range of sources that cover current developments in the Eurasian region. Let me wish you a very fruitful conference for the remaining one day. It's my genuine hope that the new insights, viewpoints, and opportunities for networking that the Budapest Eurasia Forum 2023 offers will inspire you. The Magyar Nemzeti Bank is open to future cooperation with any parties interested in enhancing Eurasian cooperation and the free flow of ideas throughout the communities. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Virág, for the introduction. By introducing the latest edition of Eurasia Volume of Studies, we reached the end of today's program. I hope you all agree with me when I say that we had a productive day and a very rewarding day as well. Our speakers have guided us through the most topical and intriguing questions of our times in the fields of finance, geopolitics, and technology. I wish you all a great rest of the day and hope to see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at the second day of the Budapest Eurasia Forum 2023. Tomorrow we will have a keynote conversation as an opening and closing session with further panel discussions on economics, multilateral cooperation, and education during the day. If you missed any of the speeches, or you would like to rewatch our sessions, visit the Budapest Eurasia Forum website in the upcoming days, as all sessions will be available on demand soon. Thank you very much to all of our physical and online guests for their participation. Goodbye.